Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Tearing It Up podcast. So by the time you are hearing this, it is the end of January or towards the end of January. So wrapping up our first month of 2025. And I'm here today with Lydia Davies, and I'm really excited to have this conversation because we are, as I've mentioned in the last couple episodes, kind of expanding our network here at the podcast, meaning that we have had many conversations with women in the outdoor industry, which I love, our souls are rooted in, and I'm completely immersed in. But there's also just so many women out there in other industries and areas doing amazing things. And I think that all these conversations need to be heard because we as humans are multifaceted. We have a lot of different interests. If you've been listening for a long time, you know that I definitely have roots in traditional sports as well. And I just truly believe in the power of traditional sports as well as being in the outdoors and all this. So I think that we're all connected in one way or the other. So just kind of connecting the dots for all of us here and our different interests and finding out what's happening in these worlds, like hearing about the women making waves in the entertainment and sports world. And Lydia has a company called Osprey that is helping and supporting women in those areas. So we'll get to hear all about that. And I'm going to turn it over to Lydia now, and we're going to find out where exactly you are right now while we're recording this episode.
Hi, Taryn. Thanks so much for having me. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I've been here now for about 10 years. And it's a great, easy, fun place to live. I've become one of those like real Texan people. I'm from the UK originally, so it's very different, but it suits my personality.
That's amazing. And so we hopped on here before. I like to be transparent with our audience here. We were on our usual recording platform and the connection was just awful. We had such a delay, so we hopped over here on Zoom. So in my head, I have to remind myself what you, as the audience, haven't heard. Like we're starting over here. But I was I saw on LinkedIn that Lydia had posted recently that her family is spread out around four different countries. And, around the holidays, I think we're coming out, well, we're well out of the holidays now that the time you're listening to this, but still, it can be really hard to be spread apart from your family. My family is just 12 hours, like by driving north of me. So an easy hour and a half, 2 hour plane ride away. And a lot of my like friends, best friends and stuff like that are in that same area. I can't imagine being spread out across four different countries. So I'd love to hear a little bit about like where your family is spread out about around the world right now.
Yeah, it's funny because all my life I've wanted like what you have, where it's like, all your friends are down the street, your mom's around the corner, like that's what I always wanted. And I dreamed of that like nuclear family and community and whatnot. But I grew up as an expat and we moved like every 18 months to 2 years around Southeast Asia. I lived in the Middle East, Europe, US, and we were just scattered everywhere. So it just ended up that, my father and his wife stayed in Singapore. They're now back in England, but they've been in Singapore for a long time. And then my older brother is in South Korea, and my younger brother and my mom are in England. And so we're just like all over the place. Then we had COVID and I had little kids, and it's hard to get on those long haul flights now, especially with small children and just, the way it is now, like flying and traveling used to be fun. And now it's kind of like, it's going to be a delay and you're going to be sitting in the airport with screaming children for hours. And so it's just not, it's not the same, which definitely makes it harder. But we try and FaceTime a lot and, chat on WhatsApp and whatnot. But it's definitely different than what I imagined my surroundings to be like at this age.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine trying to travel with little children like across the globe, not just across the country, not just a couple states away. Like especially like you said, these days traveling even just domestically in short distances is like a pain in the butt. You just don't know. Like, sure, even me just going to Washington, it could be easy, get on the plane, I'm there 2 hours later. But if you get your flights canceled, like it's happened to us trying to go to Michigan, and just we're at the airport and every 15 minutes watching the delay happen, hours and hours delayed, just keeps adding. And then finally they just canceled the whole thing. And it's like, okay, well, now they want us to fly out tomorrow. You're like, well, we don't even want to take that risk. We had such a short trip planned anyways. Everyone took the day off of work to come to the airport anyways. It's just like, oh, it's so much more difficult these days. And again, adding kids to the equation and 20 plus hours. I can't imagine trying to do all that right now on top of I'm sure the million of other things you guys have going on in life. But that's a bummer that you can't see your family as much, especially with little kids. But that is one really, really great thing about technology and phones and things like FaceTime and this here, even Zoom and stuff these days, is that you can stay so much more connected being far away. And that's something like we didn't have growing up. Like if you didn't have family around, if they weren't traveling often, you see them maybe once a year, every couple years. So the fact that, I can still have a relationship with my niece and nephews because I can FaceTime them like once a week. They know who I am. If we didn't have that when I would go home to visit, they'd probably be shy around me, like not so sure of me and stuff. So I'm sure your whole family appreciates having that ability to connect.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And technology, like, love it or hate it, it's done wondrous things for like connecting people. And like I had a lovely chat with a lady in Dubai yesterday, and it was just like FaceTime. And it's just like it's so easy to like meet people and have quick introductions and whatnot. And I love that. And like part of the reason that I started building communities is because, I always had family far away from me. So every place I moved, I would like build a community, whether it was like through my sports teams at school or just the expat community or in college. And that just became like part of my lifestyle. It was like, you make your community with what you can and who's there and who's going to lift you up and who you can lift up. So that really became like a big passion of mine because of the moving around and being like spread through the globe and whatnot.
You found like the silver lining in it, it sounds like, with, mentioning wanting to have that close-knit group and community of friends and family, but not ever having it. But that was kind of the push to building different communities, which I don't know, is that what kind of led you to where you're at today?
Yeah, so I mean, I did many years in the music industry, over a decade as a singer-songwriter. I also played college soccer, but then I kind of went the music industry route. I was never going to be a pro soccer player. I just wasn't good enough. But I really loved it and enjoyed it, but I just didn't, it wasn't in me. But during that time in the music industry, I felt so isolated and alone. And it was kind of this like disconnect between what my heart and like my intuition wanted versus what I thought I had to do. And I was so passionate about it, and I really wanted to succeed as a songwriter. But I was always consistently surrounded by men that were like twice my age, that were like the managers, the agents, the producers, whatnot, that I had no like, peer relationship with. Um, and after feeling isolated for so long, it took me down. And I sat after over a decade in it, I sat there and I was like, this is not me. This is not what I want. This is not how I want to live. And I left the industry actually to, try and do other entrepreneurial stuff. And I started building communities, and I started with a performing arts school here in Houston with like moms and kids, and we taught music and dance and whatnot. And I had that for about 4 years. I then created a golf app that was a golf meetup app for to meet to play golf during the pandemic. And then I swim clinics and everything just became like back around to the community. And then I put on pickleball events and everything was just like very like community focused. Um, and so when I started Osprey, I had just kind of observed for about 20 years, like women feeling isolated and alone in these like very male dominated sectors, obviously not getting paid equally, not getting the opportunities that the men were getting, and feeling like they had to hold back on things that affected them personally, like, whether it's an issue with a coach or an issue with an agent or a brand, or you don't feel comfortable with a brand, but you don't want to say it because you feel like you have to. And I feel like women always feel like they have to say yes. And that's something I know we're all collectively working on is like boundaries and no's. Um, but I just felt if there was this space that these women could all come together and feel heard and understood as a collective, and have access to each other in like not a force way, but an organized creation of a nest that I was doing, then they wouldn't feel like I felt.
Yeah, that's just, it's an amazing thing to be able to put something together for other women to connect because there's so many, like you said, who and how you felt like who are isolated and just don't even know where to start, where to reach out, especially in some of these male dominated industries that and depending on where they're at in the world, in the country, that they literally might not have even a friend or any kind of mentor, anyone to lean on to help them support what they're going through or like understand, relate to it. So being able to create a community like that where women can find this. And we had a conversation recently with a gal who works for the National Deer Association. And so that was just a big conversation and like the hunting and fish and game aspect that there's a lot of women out there. There's a lot of women in all these different areas. But our voices still are nowhere near as loud as the men's are because we're still so spread out that
Mhm.
like there's a lot of women more isolated in some areas in these arenas, and they don't even know like that there's other women out there doing the same thing. And that's a part of the reason, a big reason why, I do the podcast and want to have it is because I felt kind of isolated in things that I was doing, like just not knowing, like, has anyone ever, done this? I haven't heard this people doing it the way that I'm like doing life, like just kind of doing it the opposite way and of what most people do. And of course, people have done it that way, but I'm just saying it's like I didn't have a mentor in a lot of things. I just did it. And it can get lonely in those times. So I wanted to be able to share voices and like let people know there's people out there doing the thing you're doing, or at least have similar feelings, like you're not alone, even though it might feel like it. So that virtual community we're able to create now with technology and through like Osprey, I'm sure with you have ambassadors and athletes, entertainers, like blending two worlds that you wouldn't think would go together. I think, being in the songwriting and music industry and then talking about like sports and athletes and stuff, I think you look at those and you think those are two separate things. But like I said in the beginning, we're multifaceted humans. Like we don't have to always keep things separate. Like just because you love the outdoors over here and I love team sports over here, like it's still a part of me. So bringing these things together, I think, is amazing and reminding us that like we can have more than one interest and we can all support each other within those different interests.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting now is that I have always had a deep, deep passion for sports. Like I played tons, I was in traveling teams in school and then in college and whatnot. I'm like still to this day, like play a bunch of sports and I'm an avid skier and whatnot. And I found so much joy in being active and playing sports and having that team feeling and those bonds with those other women. But what I realized when technology became more apparent, like, when social started and whatnot, was that the athletes really had to be entertainers as well. Like they had to start and some of them really don't want to, but they kind of don't have a choice at this point. And so they had to learn how to be this person that speaks to everybody and talks to the press and does stuff on social media and creates a following. Sometimes just by being themselves, but it's still a push. It's still, you're still like having to put yourself in front of a camera. And for some people, that's not, I mean, you could be the best athlete in the world, but that doesn't mean you like being on camera and everyone like, watching what you do all day. Um, so I found that intercepting the two really helped with the like understanding of each sector for both of them. And most of our entertainers are very active or have played sports as well, which is very interesting. Like even our DJs and actresses and whatnot, like everybody's very into fitness and that kind of lifestyle. So the collaboration possibilities when it comes to like reels or brand collabs or anything like that is actually like amazing. Whenever we have our big Osprey events, whether it's like women in football or women in golf or whatever it is, we always have like our one of our DJs playing and then the sport going on and then one of our fitness creators doing like a yoga class and then our dancer teaching a dance. Like there's all these like different things going on using all of the different talents in the community across sports and entertainment. So it's really become like cohesive and they've really complemented each other in so many different ways. And I think, I sometimes feel bad for athletes because I'm like, this is now just something you have to do, and always the number one question in the community is like, how do I get more followers? How do I create the right content? And like, I'm not an expert on that. Like I can write stuff on LinkedIn, but like Instagram is not like my favorite thing. But it's necessary and it's awesome. So we have experts come on and like talk to them about like how you can do this. Like we have all these different resources, whether it be like wealth advising, fashion styling, brand experts, all these like amazing people come on and talk to them about like how you can do better in this or how you can come up with some content that doesn't take you the entire day after you've just trained for hours. So yeah, the crossing of the sports entertainment has been amazing to watch. And I just kind of knew, maybe because the way I felt, that entertainers love the sports and the sports people love the entertainment, and it's all just cohesive in one.
Yeah, that's such a good point about athletes, and just how they have become their own. Basically, they all have to be marketers because the brands rely so much on them these days for that content because they're already getting content, whether that was someone else filming them or something. But now it's so much pressure, like daily, to show up there and to perfectly kind of curate their social feeds. A lot of athletes I feel like have lost their it's already hard to have an identity outside of being an athlete, especially when you're a paid athlete, because you have to put everything into that. But now that you have to like kind of show up everywhere all the time as, like you said, this person who needs to be able to speak in front of people, and it's like that's not what a lot of them signed up for. Like maybe it's changing now with the younger generation. They know what to expect coming into these roles, but still, if their main passion was the sport or the entertaining, the dancing, whatever, like for the people, for the music, it's like it wasn't to have to talk to people all day or post on something. Some of them don't even like social media at all. And it's
Oh
like
yeah.
what they throw up there is because they got to edit from someone. It's not them actually like, well, in the early days, they didn't enjoy editing it themselves or anything. They just want to do the thing. That's what they care about, and are lucky to get filmers or photographers who can make them look even better. But now the pressure is on them to show up in those spaces all the time. So I can't imagine like being in that role where you're like, I just want to ski or I just want to play soccer, and now I have to like to support my brands, I have to show up every day and talking about them or something. And some people just still don't have those people skills.
Yeah, and of course, because why would everyone have those skills? We all have different personalities and different introvert, extrovert, all these different things. So like they shouldn't have to have them all. But the problem is, especially with like women athletes, it's like they don't get paid nearly as much as their male counterparts, as we all know.
Mhm.
So like they have to supplement, like they have to have another job, or they have to have like such a big following that they can get brand deals all the time and then spend all their time like making reels and stories for the brands and elevating the brands, which is awesome. And I've seen some incredible things, but that doesn't mean that they want to or they like it and it's going way outside their like comfort zone. So yeah, it's challenging. It's really challenging. And we just started a college circle actually with college female athletes, which we're going to emphasize more on this year. But for them, the pressure is so on because now not only, when when I was in college, it was like just get by, like do what you can do, figure it out, and then go have a drink at the pub. Like that's what we used to do. And now it's like you have to be like the top tier D1 athlete. You have to be like student council. You have to do all these things, plus have the top GPA, plus have like 5 different internships, and also have your own social media brand. So yeah, the pressure is so much. And we wanted to start that circle so that they could have like mentors from their community and feel like they had a big sister to like lean on and voice all their stress to so that their mental health doesn't suffer and they don't feel like it's just a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure in today's society. It's constant hammering down of like how much can you hustle? Oh, you're not
Mhm.
hustling enough. Keep up, keep up, keep up. And I think it's exhausting.
Absolutely. And it feels like at times that that narrative is like we're trying to change that narrative of hustle culture, that the younger generation is like standing up, taking time off and, saying no and holding boundaries more than like millennials and things. But even though we might hear about that a little bit more and that's happening, it's still far from reality in many places and things. Like you said, it you can be that way in certain areas, industries, but there's still the industries that are really pushing the nope, if you want to make it, you have to do all these things. And social media in itself, like management it's a full-time job. Like that's why people are hired from companies to manage social media. So thinking
Yeah.
about someone like an athlete or entertainer who already has this like high performing job that takes a lot out of them physically and mentally, like plus all the other things, and then on top of that, like a full-time job trying to run social media and like their brand, which is supporting other brands. It's a lot on one's plate. I'm curious so also obviously by now I think you listeners have understood that because we're rooted in the outdoor industry, a lot of you may be familiar with like Osprey packs. This is a different Osprey here that Lydia has. And but I'm curious when you started it, like who or what did you start with? Did you start Osprey as like a group of people to connect, like almost like Facebook group, like let's get together and just connect because we're on the same level? Or what was your like first kind of mission of starting it, like connecting the athletes with mentors or athletes with each other or entertainers with each other? Where was the beginning of it at?
So I started with a couple like women I already knew, a news anchor, an Olympian, an entertainer, and I kind of just talked to them and I was like, what is it? What do you need? What are your goals? What do you feel like you're missing? Like, what do you feel you need to not feel as isolated or alone? Found out like how they felt in their jobs with their salaries, and what was really difficult for them. And I just listened. Like I listened and listened to like the first 10 people we onboarded and thought like, how can I help them? Can I get them a brand connection? Can I get them PR support? So I just started connecting them with people that I knew, whether it was like PR specialists or financial experts or brands. And then I started putting them together on like little online pods. Like, how can we all get together on these small pods and talk about our problems and like leadership and how we can set boundaries and all that stuff. Um, and then we started doing live events about a couple months in, and started small. We went to all day running, the All Day Running Co. Festival at Running Man, and We had one of our members do a talk and one of our members DJ'd, and we like plugged in an activation. And it just worked out real well, and we really enjoyed it. And we had so much fun getting to know each other, and all the members just bonded so much over like camping and, all the fun things we were doing. Um, so we just started doing more and more events, and they got bigger and bigger. And then the community got bigger. And then I kind of realized along the way I was having a lot of like executive women in sports entertainment being like, "Hey, how do we join this?" And I was like, well, why don't I of course bring in executives as well? Because like the athletes, entertainers need to bounce ideas and stuff off them and vice versa. And then they can be co-founders if they want to do a startup, if they want an apparel line or some tech company or whatever they want to do, and we can help them do that. So that's kind of like how it all started. And then it honestly just grew by referrals. And we like tried to grow, I tried to grow it slowly since it was really just me and a couple of wonderful women on my team helping out every now and then. And it just became this like really cool, tight-knit community. We now have over 100 members, and we're hoping to grow it quite a lot this year, up to 1,000 for Region 1, which is US and Canada. And it just, it just became a place of like joy and hugs and talking and friendship, and also like just, getting ideas off of each other. Like at our retreat, some of the members came to the retreat we had in September, and it was like a wellness retreat. We had all different activities, and like we did yoga horse riding, which was hilarious, and like sun baths and sports and whatnot. And some of the members led workouts, and like it was really fun. But I watched them collaborate and like get ideas from each other and be like, oh, we should do this together and we should do this together. And I was like, that's it right there. Like that's what needs to happen. So yeah, it was very organic, honestly. And the brands we got involved at the beginning was very organic. They were like female-founded businesses or small businesses. And it's just kind of grown from there.
That's amazing. And like I said, just the pure fact of blending these different kind of industries together, like we're seeing again the connection at the core of us, of just to the very least we can relate on being women in an industry that is dominated by males. And I get this narrative has also said a lot to us about like niching down. And so when I look at Osprey and look at what you're doing, that is the opposite of what I feel like people would probably tell you to do. If like, oh, I want to start this community, I feel like people would tell you like, oh, well, just focus on athletes or focus on entertainers or executives, like focus on one area. Like you can't be too general and get people from here, here, and here because at some point, like you won't be able to, like you'll lose, it'll be too general or something. Have you been told that by anybody as you're growing Osprey to like make it smaller, to focus on one group of people, or have you been able to avoid that conversation?
I mean, honestly, since we're already just focused on women in sports and entertainment, it kind of feels like it already has its niche. Um, I have not been told that, mainly because I go into places with like, this is my big idea. And I don't really let anyone like say that's not, I'm just like, this is what I'm doing. You can love you to be a part of it, but if you can't see it, then it's, you shouldn't be a part of it. Uh, but I think it is important to stay in your lane and
Hmm.
like know what you're good at. And it was funny when I did that golf app. Like, I'm not an amazing golfer, but I like golf. Like, I really enjoy it, and I like meeting women and playing golf with them. And it's a great time to spend the afternoon. But sometimes during that journey, I was like, I should not be doing this. Like, I am not a pro golfer. Like, this is not. I don't know everything about golf. Like some of our members are pro golfers, and I'm like, I try to do this thing and then realized that, I needed someone that was really an expert in that. So this, I feel like I am an expert in, and I'm staying in my lane of like the two sectors that I really understand. And also like very much understanding women and communities of women. But I do think it is important, like with startups, it's hard. Like I know startups that pivot and pivot and pivot and change their demographic and change their, target market and whatnot all the time. And I think that gets, of course, you can do it sometimes, but I think it gets a little, wild card if you're trying to go this way and then that way and whatnot. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I will definitely be staying in this lane until I can keep a fully concrete, stable like foundation of the company built. Um, and then, maybe we'll add some other stuff in later on.
I love that you said, you haven't really heard that because you kind of walk into a room being like, this is what I'm doing. So you're here for it or you're not. And that is the attitude that I love and resonate with. And because I've been told a lot to kind of like niche down, focus on one thing. And I'm like, well, I have interest in a lot of different things. And it's not that I'm like, squirrel over here. Like, but as I've mentioned a few times already, that like all these things are a part of me, they are me. So, that's all I'm doing is just kind of expanding on parts of me and showing how they are all connected together and how that's just how we are as humans. But again, there's a time and a place, and there's times that you do need to kind of niche down, focus on one thing. But I always like to hear from people who are doing things that from a bird's eye view from someone else who isn't involved at all might look at and be like, wait, how is this all connected? Um, and trying to tell you like, I don't see the connection here. It's like, well, then it's not for you because you don't see the connection here. You obviously don't have the connection to all the different things or even one that it's just not for you. And that is okay. That is the biggest lesson, not the biggest, a big lesson in life though, that I think is hard for us to learn and we don't often learn until we're older, but that we truly accept is that we are not for everyone. So just do your thing. And the people who it's right for, the people you connect with, the people
Yeah.
you're for, they'll find you or you'll find them, whatever. And yeah, we don't have to be for everyone, but as long as you're like passionate and doing the thing that you want to do, then you'll hopefully find whatever success is to you and happiness. There's a quote on your website that I see that I just love so much, and it's that you don't have to do big things to leave a legacy. You just have to do the right things to the right people. And that just hits so hard. Like that is an amazing quote that I think a lot of our audience will be able to resonate with too, because so much of our world these days with social media and things, they make it's a highlight reel, right? It makes it seem like someone did something overnight and was a success or like their business is very, very successful. What they're doing is just like great. They found the key to it all, but it's like you don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, how much work is going into it. So it's like not everything has to be huge. You don't have to go viral to like make a difference in people's lives or again to find your own happiness or success.
Yeah, it's so true. I think it's really hard because so many of us are people pleasers, myself included, and we want to make people happy and we want people to like us and we want to like make a big impact. But I think what I've realized like over the years is that big impact can be on just one person. Like that, even if you have one person be like, wow, that really helped me. Like what you did or what you said or this event that you put on or something you posted, like that really helped me. Like you've already affected one person's life, and that's a big impact. And if you haven't had that, I'm sure there's someone in your family or your friends or something that you have done that to, or a pet. I mean, there's so many different ways of having that like footprint in the world, and just it doesn't have to be this giant glamorous thing. Like it just has to be one small little footprint you've put into someone's life. And I think that took me a long time to learn because I always wanted to be, I'm a go-getter, like hustle person trying to slow down, but it's hard. But I always thought like, oh no, I have to be big. Like I have to be, my song needs to be number one, or it's not good enough, or this needs to be, I have like this GPA, or it's not good enough. That was always like my drive. And it was just to myself. But I think I've learned along the way that the small touches and the small moments are the ones that create the big impact.
Absolutely. And that's something we just need to remember more often because we get sucked into the idea of the big impact, the hundreds, millions, all those people that we have to reach or do this to be again like the success. And it's like, no, we have to go inward and remember like what success actually means to us ourselves, not to like anyone else out there. And I'm sure we all have had an experience, like you said, where you've done something that affected one person, even just something throughout your day, like someone dropped something, you picked it up for them, and just the pure gratitude or something that they have, like for you is it just makes you so happy. Like when you truly make someone smile, give them a compliment or help someone, like you, like I said, everyone I'm sure has experienced the most little thing and how happy that can make you. And we have to tap into that more often and remember that our impact can be small but mighty. Okay, so I know we're running a little bit short on time because of our technical difficulties today, which is just, part of the world. I had a couple quick things for you because we are going to be having Demi Knight Clark on the podcast, and she is actually the one who connected us. So you guys will all hear from Demi, but she is a welder and she's doing big things in the trade world for women and getting women out there and introducing them to welding and all sorts of things. I am curious, like, to hear a little bit about that connection with Osprey and that world and where that fits in, and if you are doing more like in the trades, basically just to try to tell the audience like who Osprey is for.
Yeah, so Osprey, I mean, so Demi and I met actually on LinkedIn, and she is an awesome, incredible, accomplished woman, that does so much for like STEM and trade and welding and everything for women. And we just really clicked, and she's actually been helping with Osprey, which is awesome. And at the same time, and she's a really, badass, director of partnerships for us right now. And it just we kind of started talking about like these industries that women don't have access to and don't know about. Like we have so many athletes that when after they're retired from their sport, they're like, I don't want to sit in front of a computer. Like I want to do something with my hands and I want to be like physically busy. But it's hard to think of these things like the trade jobs and whatnot, that they would probably really enjoy. So it is something that we're going to introduce and have people talk about and whatnot. For Osprey, because we're always trying to help our members come up with new jobs they can do, new companies they can start, new things they can learn, opportunities and access. Access is a huge word in our community. But yeah, Osprey is open for any women in sports and entertainment, whether it be athlete, DJ, sports reporter, news broadcaster, actress, singer, model, uh, any kind of pro athlete, and then also the college athletes and the executive women in sports entertainment. And that has a huge range. Like we have members from NBC, NHL, NWSL, like lots of different companies and sectors. We also have private wealth managers, that look after athletes and whatnot, so that there's a full like cool web of access to each other and network that you can work off of. So the goal is to like you can find your whole like life what you need within the Osprey nest. So we're really excited to grow it and the opportunities and the possibilities of just opening these doors for women and, expanding on what we currently have access to and how can we find ways to get more of it.
And that is amazing. If there's women out there listening who are just interested in kind of getting into these realms, sports reporter, entertainment, or anything like that, would it still be the time now for them to look into Osprey and to join being like trying to get their foot in the door in these industries? Or if you need to be a little bit more established, do you have any place to send them, any kind of way for them to connect to help them get further along in the industry than they might be right now?
Yeah, so we have an ambassador program that we're just starting. Actually, we've already had some people sign up, and apologies to them if they're listening and I haven't got back to you yet, but we've been organizing it. But they can start there, and then once they're in the industry, we'll help them find placement. Like we'll help them find jobs and send them in the right direction, introduce them to the people they need. Um, and then they will eventually become a member if they move into one of those sectors. So and I'm always here for anyone that needs to just have some guidance. It doesn't have to be a potential member. I want to be able to support women and what they do and what they want to do and their dreams and elevate them. And yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. Before we let you out of here, one last ask of you is just to tell everyone where they can find you, whether that's connecting with you personally, and Osprey. Of course, you all know it'll all be in the show notes, but for those who can actually listen and remember and want to put it in their brains now, where's the best place to get connected?
Yeah, so you can send a message on our website. It's joinosprey.com. It's actually being redone, so there'll be something new and beautiful soon. You can always message me on LinkedIn. It's Lydia Davies on LinkedIn. I always respond to messages. And on Instagram, TikTok, we're Join Osprey. We also always answer to all the Instagram messages. So yeah, multiple ways you can find me. You can email me, lydia@joinosprey.com. Um, so hopefully I hear from some of you.
Awesome. Well, Lydia, thank you so much. Thanks for sticking it out with me today as we had a few different problems connecting and getting this in. So I'm glad we did and had this conversation. I hope that you out there can get connected with Osprey and with Lydia. And if you have any other questions about Osprey, if it's for you, what's for you, anything like that, like Lydia said, reach out to her. They're an open book. And thank you again so much, Lydia, for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Taryn, for having this platform for women to get to talk and for following your intuition. And I'm proud of you for doing it. So
Oh,
thank you for having me.
thank you so much. Thanks everyone out there for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.